Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, alongside, as always, hello, Scott.
Hey there, Sean. I'm trying to get my own catchphrase. What do you think?
Yeah, very good. Very, very impressed. See, I'm out of breath. I'm so impressed.
Wow, Sean. So impressed. Not feeling so hot tonight, are you?
Yeah, a little under the weather here on a Friday night, but we made it to Kingston. We both made it to the arena. One of us lasted a little longer in the building than the other one.
That's
but,
right.
We both made it into the building for the wild card game tonight. The full field events kicks off tomorrow afternoon. And now we have 16 teams, Scott. Mike McEwen, his team get a 5-4 victory over Glenn Howard. Draw. Stopped about, I think it stopped in the forefoot, might have touched the button to win the game in the 10th end. But overall, I think it was a really well-played game. And over the past few years, when we've had wildcard games, we've constantly remarked on how sloppy they tend to be. Mm-hmm. This one was not the case. This was really clean, well-played all the way through.
Yeah, really, really well-played game. I think in the feeling in the arena, certainly it was a pro Glenn Howard crowd.
Yeah, no question.
Glenn Howard's team seemed to have control. They took the hammer back when it came to the fifth end. They, forced McEwen to singles. Maybe a bit of a strategy blunder in the fifth, where they had a rock buried behind a long center guard, and then sort of a setup of why, like rocks arranged so they look maybe like a V, I guess.
Yeah.
In the house, and there was no moving that rock off the button for at least one or two shots, and they made a curious decision on Scott Howard's first to play a little hit and roll.
Yeah.
Then they tried to figure out, hey, what can we do now that we did this, and didn't seem like they had planned for it. But I made a note about how things ended. McEwen had a pretty bad miss after that, and then Howard played a double, and it sort of opened the whole intern side of the sheet, I should say. Their rock was in the same spot, and McEwen made like a beauty freeze.
Yeah.
He was not shot rock. Glenn was still one shot.
Yeah.
And they decided after a long discussion to try and pick it right off the top.
Yeah.
Missed. But my question to you is, when you've got like a stone in a pretty good position, is opening a shot for the other team what you really want to do?
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about the way they called that. I understood what they were saying, though. So by that point, I was back out of the arena, so I was able to hear the conversation. One of the things they were worried about was not having, early in the end, on Scott's shot, as you were talking about, was not having that path into the button area for the second point. So that's why they were talking about moving things around and making it a little more open. Because you had the stuff around the sides, I don't think they ever thought the stone that was shot at that point would count for a point. So they were playing to be open and have the stuff around count.
Okay.
That's what they were thinking. I didn't hate it. I wasn't crazy about the idea of it, but I understand, especially in a really close game, wanting to make sure that the button area, the forefoot, is open. So it's a very defensive play, and I think we've seen more of that from Glenn Howard over the past couple of years.
Right.
Moving to a more defensive strategy. So I didn't hate it. I think that was a point in the game, though. They were in control. They were putting pressure on McEwen through the first half of the game. I think they outplayed them, really, through the first half of the game. That could have been a good chance to put some pressure on and maybe flip the game in your favor.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought that maybe instead of playing that hit, he should have tried to come around to maybe the back four.
Right. They talked about it.
You might give him something to freeze on,
yeah,
which is the downside. But at the same time, you sort of preserve your situation on the button, because there's a chance that McEwen could have tapped that and been shot rock.
Yep.
And then you're giving up a steal, and you don't really like that.
Yeah, and that's why they played that last one as thin as they did.
Right.
They said, play it really thin. You're never going to give up a steal. I mean, maybe you only get one.
Right.
But basically they said almost play it to miss it.
Play to miss it.
Right? And then maybe you can get 3 if you just sort of paper it. But he ends up flashing that shot and only gets the one, which is too bad for that team because through the first 4 ends, as you said, they flipped the game.
Yeah.
Right? They tie game, get the hammer back after McEwen starts with the hammer, and just sort of an unfortunate turn of events that they can't capitalize when they did have a good end going there in the 5th.
Yeah, they really did. McEwen seemed to come back a bit in the second half of the game. To be fair, he missed a couple of runs, like just a little bit in the first half, but he had beauty draw weight all game.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the 9th end a bit because it's Howard is down 1.
Yes.
And McEwen just got a pretty good deuce in the 8th, and so now it comes down to the age-old question. Yeah. Do you want to have the hammer down 1 in the 10th or be up 1 without?
Right.
So tell me what you heard on the discussion around David Mather's second rock. They could have peeled, kept the front open. I think they had 3 rocks in the house. McEwen had a couple in pretty good position. Yeah. But what was that discussion like?
So the discussion really was, at one point, Glenn and Scott were even thinking about, there was a McEwen stone sort of top 4 foot of playing the red guard back into it and sort of taking everything out. At that point, it really felt like they were going for the blank. Yeah. That they didn't like the setup for 2 at that point in the end and were trying to bail out. And that run, if they make it, 3 or 4 stones are out of play at least, you're probably guaranteed a blank at that point. Mm-hmm. So that's what Scott and Glenn were talking about. Tim hated it. Yeah. I wasn't crazy about it either because if you ever stick it, you have a center guard still up there and 2 red ones at the top of the 4 foot. So it was a really dangerous shot. So pretty much right out of Dave Mather's hands, they were like, okay, straight peel. And it seemed like nobody was that committed to playing the run and playing that peel, keeping it open. They knew that it's weird, right? It's totally antsy club curling. There's 5 stones left in the end, 5 stones in play, and Glenn is, Russ is pretty much saying, yeah, there's a pretty good chance of a blank here. Which at a club level, no, there isn't. Yeah. So I understood it at that point in the end because it wasn't really set up for them very effectively. Okay. Now they did have a chance for 2.
Once Reed threw his, then Reed Carruthers, I tweeted, boy, it looks like Team Howard's committing to, because I believe it was Dave Mather's second shot. His first one, he tried to throw a peel or he tried to throw a run and didn't make it. And he played the come around on his second, right? They didn't peel the guard?
In the first one, they peeled.
But on his second.
Right. They
played the come around. And I tweeted, oh, that's the commitment to me that they're going hard for their 2. Yeah. And then I wrote blank unlikely. Yeah. And then Reed Carruthers tried to prove me wrong by getting all the stones moving that were in the house, managed to rearrange things in a way that it just made it harder for the Howard team to try and set up their deuce.
But they did make McEwen have to think on his last. So
they did.
There's a McEwen stone frozen top 4 on the shot stone, 2 Howard stones off to the side. And there was a lengthy discussion by McEwen about, obviously they want to get rid of the shot stone, but how do we position our rocks to not give up a 3?
So before you get going there, on Glenn's first, he was wide. Yeah. It took out a McEwen stone, but also took one of his out. So there was only 1 left on the side. Right. And there was another Howard Stone shot with the McEwen one frozen on it.
Yes. So excuse me. Yes, you are correct. So this was a really interesting point. Vic commented on it, and I sort of noted it as well, that Hodgkin and Samogowski come right down. And before Carruthers or McEwen say anything, they're like, hit this, roll here, do this, do this. And Reed Carruthers, I got to say, I don't know if it was apparent in the building, but Reed Carruthers was the MVP of the last 2 ends, and it has nothing to do with his shot making at all. So they're talking about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and he just says, let's hear what Mike thinks. And Hodgkin and Samogowski pretty much immediately go away. And they go back down to the home end. That was a great job. McEwen says, I like this. And he's like, great, let's throw it. Yeah. You saw it again in the 10th end when Mike is peeling a corner guard trying to get
to
into
go
the shot
slash,
stone.
Yeah.
One of them yells down something like, "Can we draw in now?" Or can we do this? And Carruthers just yells, "Mike wants the outturn draw." On the last one.
Right.
And that was it, right? So really good job by Reed Carruthers. That's a criticism I've had of this team.
Yeah.
That the front end has been a little too active in a lot of discussions. They can be useful at times, but sometimes gets distracting, especially when they're calling line during
they're
the
sweeping.
shot,
Yeah.
which you shouldn't do. But really effective job by Reed Carruthers tonight. And if they can keep that level, or at least if Reed can, if he can keep that calm and that level of control, this will be a really good week for them because they did not have that at the Manitoba Provincials. So for as much as I was impressed by the shot making tonight, that team dynamic at the end of the game was very impressive.
A lot better than it has been, for sure. And so back to that ninth end for just a sec. Mike makes a shot that makes the double possible, but not without rolling out.
Yeah.
And Glenn is, he's in it, so he's got to try something. And
They talked about giving him one.
Wow. I mean, down 2, I don't know if I would have.
Cooey does it
Cooey does it.
and wins.
Yeah, but Kevin Cooey's Kevin Cooey. And Glenn Howard is 57 now. He's not Kevin Cooey. Anyway, I thought they could maybe hit and get the double really thin and hit their own as well and get a blank.
That's what they were looking at.
Okay, so maybe they could have done that. Then, so they get their one, and then we fast forward a bit to the 10th end, where they've got a pretty good end setup. They've got 2 guards.
Yeah.
I agreed with the shot on Scott's second to throw another guard.
Yeah. It's just 2 feet too deep.
2 feet too deep,
Yeah.
and Mike was about to peel it. He walked up for the peel with the same shot they'd thrown.
Yeah.
And Reed,
Yeah.
if you want to call the MVP of the last
Yeah.
couple ends, says, "How about the intern and try to make the double?"
Yeah. He hunted that shot. Right? Russ,
Yeah.
I don't think Russ used that word, but he hunted it. Like as soon as Scott's rock stopped, Reed wanted that.
He saw it.
And that's a case too where, my philosophy is always if the thrower sees it and if the thrower really believes it, let them throw it. And that was a case where Reed wanted it, and it was a case. I'm sitting there watching like he's gonna make it. I don't think any of the other 3 players on that team were convinced.
No, I
as
think
much
you're
as
right.
Reed. So if Mike McEwen had asked Samagalski or Hodgson or even for himself to throw that, maybe they don't make it because they're not convinced of it. But Reed wanted it, hunted it down, made it. Glenn makes 2 really good shots, but they're off to the side.
That's it.
And Mike makes 2 great ones, and he's into the main field.
Yeah, there you go. So maybe a little bit of questionable strategy at times, which is not something you think about when you think to Glenn Howard. But all credit to Team McEwen. They made the shots when they had to, and we're just the better team tonight.
Yeah, and a really, really great game, really well played game. It's any criticism on either side is really nitpicking.
Yeah,
just a really clean, well played game, and a game that I'll be honest, I did not expect it to be as appealing on television as it ended up being.
Yeah.
Just because of what we've seen from these 2 teams.
Yeah.
In terms of interpersonal dynamics at the time, didn't appear as though any rocks picked.
No, there was one I thought at a certain point of Glenn's that I thought might have picked because something weird happened, but I guess not. So that's good.
Yeah. So really impressive game, and if we get those type of games during the week, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll wrap up here real quick, but just one little thing about the ice.
Yeah.
They were taking almost 6 feet of ice for draws, both to the wings and to the center.
Yep.
They were finishing so hard. Like you see it on TV, but because the camera's moving, maybe you don't notice it as much. Just from where I was sitting, you could see the rock, and it was tracking, and then it looked like it would take a turn.
Right.
Like put on its turn signal and dive.
Yeah.
So much finish. Really sharp rocks, I suppose. So it seemed really fast too. Like the players were sliding out.
They were talking like 15.5 to 16 seconds for a draw weight, which is really fast. Like if you look at the Scotties last week, I think we're at 14.5 to 15 seconds.
Probably 15, yeah.
So you're looking at much quicker.
So super keen. So should be good for shot making.
But we'll see. I mean, it's cold here now. I mean, it snowed this week here in southeastern Ontario.
Yeah, we'll call it
we
Eastern
are.
Ontario.
And it's cold right now. It's going to be cold through the weekends. It is forecasted to warm up over the course of the week, and we are right on the lake here. So, hopefully the ice can stay consistent. But it was really good tonight. A lot of curl on the draws, very straight on the hits. And, Russ was saying that's what they expected coming in, given this ice crew. So if they can keep it like that, there's no reason for the players to complain, which is great.
Yeah.
And it'll mean a lot of shots.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll watch how that changes, see if it tracks differently any one of those days. But
and I really like that too, because I don't like when you get a lot of movement on upweight stuff, because then the guards don't really mean anything.
Yeah.
So with this, you can come around, you can get behind things. You have to be careful so you don't over curl.
Right.
But if you can position it perfectly, when it runs straight on a hit, it makes it that much harder to get rid of. So it rewards good rock positioning in the house a little more. There's less room for error for the team trying to remove stones, and given how lively, we talk about it all the time, how lively the houses are, how lively these stones are, having straighter hit weight ice, that'll make it a lot harder for these teams.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys who can make runbacks in this field, so we'll see how that's impacted if the runbacks are easier with the straight ice. So anyway, any last thoughts you have there on tonight's game?
I'm a little disappointed. It was a pro Glenn Howard crowd, and I think I was sort of leaning that way a little bit too. Glenn is just such a great ambassador for the sport. It's always great when he's there and he's around. It would have been nice to have that second Ontario team. That's a hometown thing. And I don't know if you stayed in those seats the whole game, Scott, but we were right next to the Howard section, and the whole family was there, and they were pretty into it, pretty loud.
They showed them on TV quite a bit. Hey?
Yeah, they were very nervous as those rocks were coming down the ice. Great for Glenn Howard, and you hope he keeps playing, and maybe he makes it to Saskatoon in a couple of years. We'll see. But great job tonight. Nothing to hang your head about. And now we have 16 teams.
So that's going to do it for us here from Kingston.
Yes.
Sean, I don't know all the things you say at the end, so why don't you take that away?
So we will be back with you all week. We're doing daily all week here from Kingston and the 2020 Briers. Brier. The schedule or the plan is to do them from the arena the next couple nights after the last draw.
Yeah.
So we're going to get in there. We're going to talk to some of the players as well. So if you have anything you want us to ask them, let us know. And we can certainly get them after the games. Again, reasonable questions.
Yeah.
So if you want to, you can certainly find us on Instagram and Twitter at Game of Stones Pod. Scott's there at Scott Likes TV, and I'm at Dr. Shawnee Fever, and you can email the show gameofstonespodcast@gmail.com and follow along all week by subscribing wherever it is you get your shows. So we'll be back with you tomorrow night after the first day of action at the Brier, official day of action at the 2020 Brier here in Kingston. But until then, keep your brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.